The next item on the agenda is the CT 0253 form and approval letter for tax revenue anticipation note. On September the 2nd, we were notified we had approximately $174,000 in the general operating fund, and we needed approximately $450,000 to $500,000 to pay the bills. So the approval letter had already been sent in and asked for, so we chose to borrow $600,000 out of debt service, and the commissioners had already approved that back when they approved the budget. So the proper paperwork was sent in, and we borrowed $600,000, which has to be paid back by the end of the fiscal year. And Attorney Cary was going to give you some insight on that for the rest of the night.
Well, doesn't seem like things changed a whole lot since I left last time. But let me tell you where you are, how we got this way, what you got to do to stay out of this mess in the future. Now, we did your county fund balance that all of you got on this piece of paper here. The county fund general balance right now is $612,387.49. That includes $600,000 that you got to pay back. So your net fund in your county general fund balance is $12,387. That's all the money you got. Now, your county debt service, where we borrowed the money from, since we since borrowed that, has a balance of $227,622.77. When you add it back, when we pay the money back, it'll be $827,000. So your combined county general fund and debt service fund balance is $840,010.26. We also have another fund, the landfill, but that's an enterprise fund, and you cannot use that money for anything else. Now, where we got there, and it's been somewhat of a reoccurring problem, and just quite frankly, I'm going to tell you, y'all been a little short-sighted in what you've been doing. Now, 1 penny of property tax brings in $36,502. Now, what y'all have been doing is that the general fund can only appropriate 85% of the revenue. And of the total tax rate, the general fund gets about 41%. Now that 41% should generate a surplus of 15%, and that surplus of 15% comes in about $535,000. So that surplus is at the end of the fiscal year. So on June 30, you got a surplus of about $535,000 to $600,000. The county spends about $200,000 a month just on normal bills and payroll taxes. So that's going to last you about 3 months. So you're borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. And what happens is at the end of 3 months into the new fiscal year, you're broke. And then the property taxes don't go out to the first day of October. They're payable through the last day of February. Our big months for collection of the property tax is December and February. That's when it comes in for the tax deduction, and people can hold the money for the end. Now, what you got to do to stay out of this mess in the future, you got to do one or two things, or a combination of two things. You've either got to cut this budget somewhere $600,000 in round figures, or you've got to raise the property tax about 18 cents in round figures, or a combination of the two. Otherwise, one of these days, you're going to run out of money. You're not going to have the money to borrow to pay the bill, because you're cutting it awful close with $227,000. And here we are today, we're in September. These are the fund balances as of today. Now, you won't get any money in until October. You get a little sad, but you're not going to get any money in until October. Your big money's not coming in December. What's going to happen if you need to have some money? You're out of money. You got to go borrow. Now, one thing, additional thing that was pointed out with the sheriff's cars a while ago, just because you've got a line item in a budget does not mean the money is there. That's for a yearly budget. We don't get the money until December or February. But people have been buying things before we had the money. And you've got to say, you commissioners, when people come before you, the county mayor, you've got to say, no, we don't have the money yet. We may can get you that in January, but we can't get you that in July. And so that's a problem. But just the employment taxes alone, just the employment taxes, run around $50,000 a month. So you take, we're spending $200,000 a month. And it's nice to say, okay, we're gonna use this unappropriated fund balance, or this surplus, or whatever fancy name you wanna call it, to do the first 3 months of the fiscal year, and we're not gonna raise taxes, or what's that? You're gonna cut it short, because $227,000 when you're spending $200,000 a month. You know, I mean, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, and your checklist's gonna get zero before long. That's what I'm saying, you've got a combination of two things you've got to do. Now, a lot of times, you complain, and I've heard people complain, I'm gonna explain this to you. We've given you a copy of the private act that governs this county. This county went broke in the 30s. Warrants were being used for about 10 cents on the dollar. And so we passed this private act that's kept us out of trouble ever since then. And it says we can't appropriate but 85% of the property tax. Well, back when Charles Johnson was director of schools, he came in, and there's nothing wrong with it. He came in and he wanted to increase his portion of that to 92%. So we passed that, which gave him an additional 7% of local funds to use where he couldn't appropriate it otherwise. Well, they then, can appropriate up to 92%, which means they got a built-in surplus of 8%. They save their money. Y'all don't save your money. You spend your 15%, so you don't have a surplus. And so they're saving their 8%, but y'all are spending your 15% as quick as you can. You spend it in the first 3 months of the fiscal year. And that's got to stop, because this county, if we have a tornado, if we have anything to go bad, you're out of money. You're absolutely out of money. Now, there's certain funds like gas tax can only be used on the road. But there are other things. We've gotten real close in this county on more than one occasion where we could not meet payroll. Now, that's how serious this is. And I've given you the figures. I've given you the private act. I've told you what you got to do. Now, one thing I've harped on for years, and what I harped on 11 years ago when I was up here, and I'll tell you all this again, which goes right to this thing here. You can't be a county commissioner about 2 or 3 hours a month. You're not doing your job. Now, we need to have you involved in county government. And all of you, I think the mayor's going to put all of you on a committee. Now, you need to be on a committee. Now, an individual county commissioner doesn't have any authority. Like I remember one time when I was county attorney before, we had a problem with individual county commissioners running out various departments, telling them how to run their department. You don't have that authority. You work as a group, as a committee. But we need to get back to a very strong committee system. I see Representative Shaw out there. When he was on the county commission, we had a strong committee system. What happened was the chairman of the ambulance committee gave the report. Didn't require a second. The chairman of all these various committees gave their report. They had meetings. They met with the officials down there. They knew what was going on in that department inside and out. Y'all have gotten away from that. Y'all have gotten lazy. It's what you've done. And you let other people assume the burden, and then you come in here and you say, well, we don't want to increase the taxes. Y'all have the most important job at Hardeman County. You set the revenue, you determine how much money we're going to tax people, and you determine how much money we're going to spend. Y'all determine the future of this county, because every single thing that this county does is a function of money. It's a function of money. And y'all have to get involved, and you have to do your job. And there's some comments that come up occasionally about the Board of Education, and Mr. Ross explained a while ago. They have to, by state law, maintain state effort. And I may say it a little bit wrong, but about the only way they can get less money is if the enrollment drops and their ADA goes. Then there's a way they can come off of that. But otherwise, and for years and years, and this wasn't any previous mayors, y'all got flim flam to a certain extent by other people out there. I remember one year y'all gave 10 cents on the property tax rate. Thought that was great. And just not thinking. And you got to think about what you do. In the past year or so, y'all have given money away, existing revenues of this county. You have given existing revenues away through good intentions. But you've got to watch your pilots. You read in the paper what's going on in Shelby County. Y'all lost already. Mr. Pulse can tell you, he's figured it's going to cost you about $150,000 in the next year, but this fiscal year you lost $50,000 on the pilots you approved. Now you've got to stop thinking. I remember when I was up here one time, and he's a fine person, and nobody thought about it. It's where I learned the hard way. But when they built the Babe Ruth ballpark Man came before the county commission from a local club, asked for $30,000 for the lights. County commission passed it, didn't think twice about it. Next month, we had every other town in here that make $30,000. So you've got to think about not only the short term, not only what's good and sounds good, you've got to think about the long term. You need some strategic planning, you need to think about that, and you can't continue to operate the way you've been operating. Now, I've given you the full private act, I've given you a synopsis of the private act, that the county general fund gets 41% of property tax, the school gets 59% of property tax. We also have a wheel tax, we have, you know, the gas tax, we have the sales tax, but everybody knows the sales tax is down because of the economy. Other things, it's a political decision. Y'all make political decisions. The state legislature makes political decisions. It's great. It's great for the people who buy groceries. But the sales tax on food is down to 5%. Well, that's costing money from somebody. Somebody's got to make that difference up somewhere. So those are the things you've got to think about when you make decisions. But where we are right now, hopefully that we can get to December. Hopefully we can get to December because we've got, as you see right there, we got $612,000. We get to $600,000 in December, we got to pay it now. And we're looking right now today, if you want to talk about, if you subtract your debt off of that, what you owe back, you've got a net fund balance of $12,000. Now that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. And that's not anybody's fault. It's been going on for years. It's nothing anybody created yesterday or last year or something like that. It's been going on for years. And another thing, I'll sit down and stop my lecture, but another thing is, I've given you a copy of the private act. Everybody else does it. Y'all can do it, and you've got to follow the law. You appoint the budget committee in January. You adopt a tentative budget in April, and you adopt your final budget in July. There is no reason that this county can't have a budget in place by July. There's absolutely no reason you can't do that. You've got to start following the law. You've got the law in front of you. It tells you ABC, what you're supposed to do. I remember when I first was county attorney, the county commission didn't meet 4 times a year. Y'all are meeting once a month, and we're in this mess. And you've got to go around, and I would encourage each one of you to talk to all of the elected office holders. Take Mr. Sykes up. Go down to the highway department, see what they do. See what they do. There's some of you, I would venture to say, that have never been in some county offices. You may go into Jared Armstrong's office when you buy your car tax, but you don't know what else he does in there. You know, you may go into Lily Barnes' office when you file a deed, but you don't know what else she does. So there are offices that you don't know what's going on, and you complain about spending money here and there. You need to find out why the money has to be spent. And even though it's unpopular now, and some people say he wasn't the best president in the world, back when Jimmy Carter was president, they said what was known as, you start off with zero budget, you just don't increase the line item by 10%. You go back and see if you need that expenditure in the first place. And another thing, it's easy. And personnel costs are some of your largest costs around. Sure, it's easy when you decide to give a raise, give a 1%, a 2%, a 3% raise. That's the wrong way to do it. You're widening the gap between the highest paid employees and the lowest paid employees. You'd be a lot better off to give them a $100 a month raise, every employee, or $100 a year, whatever. That helps the lower paid employees. Every time you give a percentage, you make the gap wide. Those are things you've got to think about. And we've got to get serious, about the budget. Yes, I think, and everybody's got their preferences, yes, I think there are things that can be cut in the budget. But you can't fill your car up for the same amount of money you could 5 years ago. And you got to understand that. And nobody, I don't like to pay higher taxes. Nobody likes to pay higher taxes. But until the economy picks up, the sales tax comes back, we're going to be in the same mess if you keep borrowing from Peter to pay Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Cary. I don't think there's any action to be taken. I think the commission had already approved making that one. So the next item is